I think we'll start with a good prayer. I need one tonight. Lord, we just thank you that we've all got the chance to be here, and we just ask that you speak to each one of us as these words are spoken tonight. I always try and preach from the lectionary. The lectionary is a 4 things, one from the Old Testament, one from the Psalms, one from the New Testament, and one from the Epistles, one from the Gospels and one from the Epistles. And I think it makes, I can't keep on my favourite subject if I've got to preach to one of those 4 readings. I've never really liked preaching from the Psalms. I don't like the Psalms all that much. They're not practical. They're too airy-fairy. They're for people with the other side of the brain what I've got. But the lectionary reading this week was Psalm 139, and it just blew me away. So I'm going to preach from that tonight. So I'd like to read it to you for a start. It's Psalm 139 verses 1 to 6, and then 13 to 16. And we might get lucky, that's right. O Lord, you have examined my heart, and you know everything about me. You know when I sit down or stand up. You know my thoughts even when I'm far away. You see me when I travel and when I rest at home. You know everything I do. You know what I'm going to say, even before I say it, Lord. You go before me and follow me. You place your hand of blessing on my head. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me, too great for me to understand. You made all the delicate inner parts of my body and knit me together in my mother's womb. Thank you for making me so wonderfully complex. Your workmanship is marvellous, how well I know. You watched me as I was being formed in utter seclusion, as I was woven together in the dark of the womb. You saw me before I was born. Every day of my life was recorded in your book. Every moment was laid out before a single day had passed. How precious are your thoughts about me, O God. They cannot be numbered. I can't even count them. They outnumber the grains of sand. And when I wake up, you are still with me. So, I'm going to go through this verse by verse, more like a Bible study than a sermon tonight, because there's so much in it that, well, spoke to me, but I hope it speaks to you. And I entitled this talk Doubts, because I've recently been struggling with a few doubts, as you'll hear later, and this reading really helped me. So let's get started. Psalm 139, verse 1. O Lord, you have examined my heart, and you know everything about me. Does that give you comfort? Or does it scare you? We all know in our heart that we are not perfect. But no matter how hard we try, we fail. We do the wrong thing. We have things in our life that we are ashamed of. So if God can see all that, does it comfort you or does it scare you? This is almost a litmus test as to whether you're a Christian. If it comforts you, it's because you know that even God knows all those shameful things about you, He still loves you as if they never happened. If it scares you, perhaps you have not yet grasped what Jesus did on the cross. Verse 2, you know when I sit down or stand up, you know my thoughts even when I'm far away. And then verse 3, you see me when I travel and when I rest at home. You know everything I do. Again, are you confident that God is always with you? That He knows everything you do, and He even knows your every thought? Scares me, I can tell you. We had an incident at our office this week where one of our girls is off on maternity leave and she has to apply to Centrelink again, or we have to apply as a company for Centrelink to pay her maternity leave. And the government, in their wisdom, has changed the registration for it all, and so we went through this rigmarole, me and another girl, for 7 hours, talking to various people on the phone who contradicted each other from various government departments. And if God could knew all my thoughts, they wouldn't have been real pleased with me, I can tell you. You know, a temptation is just a thought. It's a consideration, a weighing up, when the body and mind are screaming for you to do something. And God sees that. He sees how we crave evil, and He still loves us. And now to the real clanger in verse 4. You know what I'm going to say, even before I say it, Lord. Why? Why? Why then does He let me say it? You know how much trouble it's going to cause. Why not strike me mute? Or better still change my thoughts so that I don't say it. But no, God has not made us puppets where He pulls the strings. Even though we have evil hearts, evil thoughts, do evil things and speak evil words, He doesn't stop us from doing those things. What does He do? Verse 5. You go before me and follow me. You place your hand of blessing on my head. He surrounds us with His love, and He continually blesses us. While we are disobeying Him, while we are saying, up yours, God, I know what's better for me than you do, He is looking after us and providing all our needs. Can you believe that? Would you do that for somebody that continually did the wrong things for you? Maybe for a few years with rebellious teenage children, but eventually they have to learn their lesson, or they're out. But God never gives up on us. He just keeps on looking on it. He just keeps on looking after us, even if we never learn. Does it make any sense to you? Verse 6. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me, too great for me to understand. Amen to that. It is too hard to understand, but it is wonderful. I am forgiven. I am loved unconditionally. End of story. Accept it and enjoy it. Yeah, but do you ever have doubts? Do you ever have doubts about yourself? I do, to a greater or lesser extent, depending on my mood usually. On my good days I am confident, purposeful, I get things done. On my bad days I worry. My thoughts are negative. I can't make a decision. I'm full of doubt. Recently, I've been having doubts about doing this, about preaching. I have no formal training. I can't speak a word of Hebrew or Greek. Don't have a good understanding of history or the context of the times we read about in the Bible. I base most of my sermons on what has happened in my life and my perception of how God was in that, hoping that God may touch the people I'm talking to through that. Am I a fool? After all is said and done, it's just my understanding of what I think God has done in my life. And really, I don't understand it at all. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me, too great for me to understand. Matthew 22 verse 37 says, Jesus says, you must love the Lord your God with all your heart, the same generation, like to understand things. We came up through a time when science was making great strides in understanding the world. If we could understand something, we could believe it. If it could be proven, we could believe it. If it couldn't be proven, then we didn't believe it. I think this is the main reason for the decline of Christianity in the Western world in my lifetime, is that scientifically God can't be proven. It's a matter of faith, of believing something that we can't possibly understand. So it's been very hard to love the Lord our God with all our mind for my generation. But is this a valid argument? Do we have to understand? There are lots of things in the world today that I don't understand, but I still believe in them. Computers, for instance. I have no idea how they work. I usually don't. But my life and my business rely on them. Or gravity. I have no understanding of how gravity works. But I still don't walk off the edge of a cliff. No, we don't have to understand God to love Him with all our mind. Let's face it, our minds are pretty feeble compared with Him. John Stott commented many years ago in his little book, Your Mind Matters, it is not enough to know what we... I've got to get this right. It is not enough to know what we should be, however. We must go further and set our mind upon it. The battle is nearly always won in the mind. It is by the renewal of our mind that our character and behaviour become transformed. So Scripture calls us again and again to mental discipline in this respect. Whatever is true, it says, whatever is honourable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is gracious, if there is any excellence, if there is anything worthy of praise, think about these things. Our mind has to transform God's love into our actions, our behaviour. In 1 Peter 3:15 it says, in your hearts revere Christ as Lord. Always be prepared to give an answer to everyone who asks you to give a reason for the hope that you have. But do this in gentleness and respect. You can't do this unless your mind is involved. So to love God with all your mind does not mean that we have to understand God, but it does mean that we have to use all our mental capacity to love Him. And that usually means loving others with the love that He has given us. I've got to hang up on there, sorry. Let's go on, verses 13. You made all the delicate inner parts of my body and knit me together in my mother's womb. Verse 14. Thank you for making me so wonderfully complex. Your workmanship is marvellous. How well I know it. Verse 15. You watched me as I was being formed in utter seclusion, as I was woven together in the dark of the womb. I don't know about you, but the more that science discovers about the human body, I just find it more and more improbable that it all came about by chance. The complexity, not just of the human body, but of all the systems and interactions in nature, are to me proof that we were created by an all-wise God. Omniscient is the word, but I have trouble saying it. A God we will never be able to fully comprehend or understand. And then to verse 16, this amazing verse 16. You saw me before I was born. Every day of my life is recorded in your book. Every moment was laid out before a single day had passed. I said before that God did not make us puppets. And yet reading this, it could easily be construed that God arranges every moment in our life even before we are born. I could lose a few people here. I don't believe this. I believe He has given us free will. He allows us to make our own decisions, our own path through life. eternal and timeless, he knows what we will do even before we have done it. This is one of the hardest concepts for us to come to terms with because we are all bound by time. We only know the past and the now. But God is not bound by time. He invented it. He's outside of it. He knows everything that happens in the universe from beginning to end. And so he knew it before he created the universe or time. What's the time? Who's got a watch? There it is. It's exactly 19 minutes past 6. So if I decide to drop this Bible now, God didn't make me do it. I decided to do it. But God knew when he created the universe that at 19 minutes past 6 today, on Saturday the 17th of January 2021, I would drop this Bible at the Encounter Christian Fellowship because he knows everything that happens in eternity. I remember as a teenager going to see Jesus Christ Superstar. Who's of my era? Who saw that when it first came out? And I remember coming out of the show and feeling really sorry for Judas, because it was God's will that he had to betray Jesus and was condemned to hell for fulfilling God's plan. But I was wrong. It was Judas who made that decision. God knew that he would. But it was Judas' decision. Now, who's lost so far? I had a discussion with Rosemary over breakfast this week about how God is outside of time and knows the future without affecting our free will. And she told me to scrap it. I'd just confuse everybody if I brought it up. She's nearly always right. Don't you just hate that? So if I have confused you, please see me or somebody wiser than me afterwards, okay? And finally, the last two verses. Verse 17. How precious are your thoughts about me, O God. They cannot be numbered. I can't even count them. They outnumber the grains of sand. And when I wake up, you are still with me. How good is that? The omnipresent, omnipotent, omniscient, all-loving, timeless God thinks about me all the time. He thinks about the sinful, spineless, backsliding, cowardly, idiotic loser all the time. And what's more, when I wake up, he's still there. He hasn't given up on me. He's still loving me. I entitled this sermon Doubts. Next time you have doubts, go and read Psalm 139. Read about a God so powerful and so wise that he made you in all your complexity. Read about a God who knows your every thought and action, past, present and future, even as he allows you to decide on those thoughts and actions. Read about a God who surrounds you with his love and blesses you even as you sin. And read about a God who thinks constantly about you and will never leave you. And then, try and doubt that you are good enough for his love. Try and doubt that you don't have enough understanding. Try and doubt that he loves you eternally. And then you will be able to love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul,